Is money considered just sort of a bad thing in comics? What I mean by that is I've spoken to enough creators, but also people in editorial, people who are in distribution, people who are in new media and other places, people who come in and they do contract work for comics. They do a bit piece of work auxiliary to the main comic business, and there's a consistent comment that comes up, and it's there's not a lot of money in comics, and if you complain about it, you're kind of blacklisted. You're kind of considered wrong. You're considered greedy. Why is that? Why isn't there more money in comics? Hey everybody, this is Perch. You talk to any creator, you talk to you spread the gamut, especially of the newer creators, the creators who've been in this business, say, less than 10 years. And almost to a one, they'll tell you that they'd like to make more. They'd like to be paid more. They'd like to, certainly be paid on time. They'd like for the financial aspects of their business to be more reliable, to be more predictable, and to be higher. If you talk to people outside of the creators, but you talk to editorial, other people that work for these companies, frequently they will tell you that there's not enough money in comics. That they're underpaid, they're overworked and underpaid. That's like the classic comment. But at the same time, talking about money becomes this like people are almost afraid to do it. And the reason why they're afraid to do it is that they're afraid of being ostracized by their peers. They're afraid of somebody telling them that they're being greedy, that they're trying to get one over on someone else. That the quest to get paid more is going to come at the expense of another individual, and so they have to be very careful. Creators like all of us. It's a small community. They might like, the newest games or the newest, technology. They like the newest iPhone. But I remember when the iPhone, I want to say 10 came out, and I remember going to a comic convention, and I had the new iPhone, and a bunch of creators like, oh, I really want that, and then a couple are like, I've got one, but I keep it in my pocket. I don't want anybody to see that I've got it because they're going to start to assume I'm rich. And on one hand, look, I get bragging. I definitely do. And nobody likes to be around somebody who's bragging about their money, who's, basically throwing their cash around like they've got more than others. I mean, that does suck. No mistake about it. It's low class behavior and all the rest. But the other thing I found is that when people are being sketchy about money, when they're being like, oh, you can't say anything, oftentimes that's where the more catty remarks come out. That's where the more greedy, kind of selfish comments come from. But forgetting about the human psychology aspect of it for a second, the part that just gets me is why is there not more clamoring for more cash? Why does it have to be a secret? There have been artists and writers who have done really, really well, who've gotten the right comic, the right deal, and they've been very successful, and they've gotten a good payout. And there's a deep burning jealousy that exists with their peers. They don't like it. They feel like these people are almost betraying what it means to be in comics because you got some money. And this is, again, accepting the jerks who come around and brag about their money and rub it in people's faces. By and large, nobody's really doing that. Showing up with a new iPhone is not bragging about how much money you have. Buying yourself a new car, going on a vacation, if you earned it, I mean, even if you didn't earn it, it's kind of your money, it's your business. But if you're a creator and you're on a comic and it happened to pop and you did well, you should go on that vacation. You should be proud of it, and your peers should be proud of it too, because it shows that if you do something successful, if you get something good, you can be rich. You can get money. You can not just love what you do, but be paid well for what you do. And I think you should be paid well for what you do. But there is a romance of the starving artist kind of syndrome. The idea that you're there's something more pure about the work if you're broke while you're doing it. And this is something that's if you go through college, you take some lit classes. I took some lit classes. Can't say I enjoyed those lit classes. I always showed up to those, and they're like, "Here are the books we're going to read." And it's like I've read all those books except these two books that are clearly pet favorites of yours that are useless. But anyway, that was my experience. But um, there's this narrative of the really creative people suffer. You suffer for your art, and I think that that's a broken way of thinking in 2020. Sure, people suffered for their art in the 1700s and the 1200s and during the Renaissance, during these different time periods. Yeah, people suffered for your art, but in 2020, if you're living in a first world country, you should not have it in your mind that you have to suffer to produce good work. You do not. And frankly, what's strange about it is some of the creators who have expressed that they suffer for their work are not suffering. If you're living in a little condo in downtown Seattle, you're not suffering. You're you're not suffering at all. If you have to go and you have to buy some of your foods bulk in your using your membership at Costco, you're not suffering. Suffering would be you're living somewhere and in a little suburb outside of Albuquerque in a rented house that you're sharing with five other people because you can't afford, and you're basically live for the sales at Kmart. That's a tougher world. And if you don't even go even tougher, try going to live on some of the reservations or other places where you don't even have a guarantee of running water or power. That's suffering. That's not what you're doing if you're in a nice little brownstone in the outskirts of Portland. You're not suffering. No, you're not living like Bill Gates either. But anyway, I don't think that poverty or suffering has a translation to good art or good stories. I think that certainly there have been some amazing creators who have been poor, who have created very touching, very deep works. There's also been some people who are in the middle class who created great work, and there's been rich people who created great work. It's really about you as an individual. The broken part to me in all this is that by making money, by making the conversation of wealth taboo, by saying, yeah, we really can't talk about that, or worse, stigmatizing people who make it, all you're doing is you're playing kind of a corporation game. You're basically helping giant companies pay people less. You're encouraging this broken system that frankly somebody's making money, somebody's getting rich in this. It's not you. And by kind of attacking your peers when they make more money than you, or when they express a desire to make money, all you're doing is keeping the money in the pockets of people far upstream. Look, a lot of the owners, a lot of the VPs and the execs at the big comic publishers are pulling in seven figures, or have that kind of net worth. A lot of them are pulling in plenty good money. There's no reason why more people shouldn't aspire to be up in that place, and having those aspirations is not a bad thing. It's not negative. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's something to be to work for. You can want to be paid a fair rate. You can want to be paid more than you're making today and not be a greedy bastard. And it's a disturbing fact that in comics that belief has really settled in and taken hold as something people have to live with. I don't think they do. There's a lot of comments around, well, it's because comics, and people are quick to point out it's socialism. People are rooted into that kind of ideology, and that's why. I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think it has anything in this case to do with ideology. I think it has everything to do with basic jealousy, and a kind of a basic kind of human nature of it's easier for me to tear someone else down than lift myself up. And I think that's what's going on 90% of the time. And I think once that goes on for any length of time, it becomes a status quo. We've talked about on this channel, one of the parts about comics that is broken is how quickly aspects of it fall into, well, this is just the way it's always been mentality. You know, it's comics, like any business, needs disruption. It needs people to imagine and dream about what is possible, and to stop assuming that the crappy way it currently is a crappy way it always has to be. It doesn't. I don't know. For people who are in and around comics, you should be brave. You should be proud at making money or wanting to make money. That's a good thing. It's wonderful when you get to do something you love and you get to get rich off doing it. That's a great combo. There's nothing greedy about that. And I'm curious, how many of you, either as fans or creators or whoever's listening to this, how many of you have encountered this, where you're made to feel guilty, you're made to feel ashamed at getting a good payout? How many of you, and like me, do you think this is just thoroughly broken of a system? Let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. To me, it always just makes me sad. It makes me sad to think that there's this thing that is worldwide recognized IP and brands, and you've got people who are not just getting underpaid for working on that stuff, but in many cases squabbling and fighting to keep other people from being paid too. It's just thoroughly screwed up in my mind. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. Most importantly, though, thanks for listening.